volatile region, and now it's making an offer to Washington, D.C. that's hard to ignore. This is the story of Somaliland's high stakes gamble, dangling military access and critical minerals for a shot at something it has been chasing for 34 years: recognition. Hello and welcome. You're watching Statecraft with me, Tamo. Somaliland, a name you won't find on most maps, at least not as an independent country. But for the 5.7 million people living there, independence isn't just a dream, it's their lived reality since 1991. Under President Abdurrahman Muhammad Abdullahi, the territory is now going all in with the United States of America. Access to a military base on the Red Sea, and exclusive rights to valuable minerals like lithium in exchange for formal diplomatic recognition. It's an audacious proposition, one that comes at a time when great power competition is reshaping Africa, and the Red Sea has become one of the most hotly contested waterways on Earth. Let's start with what exactly is on the table. President Abdullahi's pitch is simple on the surface, but loaded with geopolitical consequence. The US gets a prime military location right near the mouth of the Red Sea, and in return, Somaliland gets the one thing it has been denied since declaring independence: formal recognition.
Regarding the current situation of the whole world, Somaliland is located in a very strategic location. It has 850 kilometers of seashore in the Gulf of Aden. Somaliland, Berbera, both the ports and the airport has been used previously during the Cold War. One is by Russians, one is by Americans. So you can understand the strategic location of the plan. Somaliland, as a country, has become independent on 26 June 1960. But unfortunately, it has chosen to give up its sovereignty to fight Greater Somalia and join with Somalia, who got its independence 5 days later, on 1st July 1960. And again, Somaliland has regaining or reclaiming its independence on 18 May 1991. But until 1991, it has not been recognized officially by most of the countries. But all the countries in the world have been needing Somaliland as a separate country. Somaliland is a country, is a democratic nation, which holds elections and gives transfer of power in a democratic way.
This is no ordinary stretch of coastline. It sits within striking distance of Bab el Mandeb Strait, the narrow passage connecting the Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden. Roughly one-third of global maritime trade flows through here. In recent months, Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen have been targeting ships linked to Israel, the US, and others, disrupting global supply chains and driving up shipping insurance costs. For Washington, the ability to monitor and secure this corridor from Somaliland could be a strategic masterstroke. And this isn't just about military positioning, is it? Not at all. Somaliland is also offering the United States of America a stake in its untapped mineral wealth, including lithium, the white gold metal at the heart of the renewable energy revolution. Somaliland's coastline isn't the only prize on offer. Buried under its rugged terrain are minerals that the modern world now treats like strategic currency, not least lithium, the keystone of batteries that run everything from electric cars to grid storage. So how real is this mineral bonanza? And could it actually change Somaliland's fortunes? Let's dig in. Start with the headline: lithium. In the global race to electrify transport and store renewable power, lithium has gone from obscure rock to a commodity of near historic importance. Demand for lithium-ion batteries has exploded in the last decade, driven by electric vehicles, portable electronics, and utility-scale batteries that stay Geological surveys point to not just lithium, but a catalog of resources: tin, gold, gemstones, gypsum, construction minerals, and industrial clays. In short, a mixed basket that could support both heavy industry and artisanal mining. But raw resources are only the start of the story. The economics of minerals, especially lithium, hinge on three things: scale, processing, and price stability. Scale meaning how much is actually there, processing meaning who refines it, and price stability, well, we know how volatile that can be. If Somaliland's deposits are commercially significant, even modest production could generate annual revenues in the tens or hundreds of billions of dollars, a meaningful boost to a $7 billion economy.
As a property investor, how do you minimize tax? Because one of the biggest challenges that you have is that there are many
Yet, real money rarely comes from shipping raw ore. The true value lies downstream, refining raw lithium into battery-grade chemicals, then assembling battery cells, and ultimately integrating those cells into finished products like EV packs. Imagine two scenarios. Scenario A: extract and export. Somaliland signs deals to sell ore. Mining firms fly in, extract lithium concentrates, and ship them overseas for refining. The territory receives royalties and a share of profits. That will raise government revenues and create jobs, but it risks Somaliland becoming a simple resource exporter with limited long-term industrial capacity. Scenario B: anchor and industrialize. Somaliland uses foreign investment to build local processing, refineries, chemical plants, perhaps even battery assembly, supported by infrastructure upgrades, ports, roads, energy and skill training. Revenues would be far larger, employment deeper, and technology transfer more likely. This path transforms a one-off resource windfall into a decades-long industrial shift. Which path Somaliland follows depends on contract design, investor choice, and governance, and that's where the geopolitics get interesting. Offer lithium access to the US with guarantees around supply security and responsible mining, and Somaliland suddenly becomes more than a port. It becomes an element in the Western supply chain strategy to weed off strategic dependence. That's leverage you can trade for recognition, military cooperation, or preferential financing. But there are major risks. Negotiated contracts can leave resource-rich countries impoverished. Environmental damage can destroy grazing lands and groundwater. Artisanal miners can be marginalized, and social conflict can flare. Corruption and weak institutions amplify all these dangers. To protect itself, Somaliland should push a clear checklist: transparent tendering processes, local content clauses that require jobs, training, and procurement, a fair royalty regime, environmental safeguards and community compensation, and a sovereign wealth vehicle to save and stabilize resource revenues for future generations. To understand why Somaliland is making such a bold move now, we have to rewind way back. Somaliland wasn't always a self-declared state. It was once the British Protectorate of Somaliland, gaining independence on the 26th of June 1960. For a few years, it was a sovereign nation for voluntarily uniting with the newly independent Italian Somaliland to form the Republic of Somalia. It didn't take long for cracks to show. Many in the north felt power was being centralized in Mogadishu, the capital of Somalia, leaving them marginalized. The real rupture came under President Siad Barre's military dictatorship, which seized power in 1969. Between 1987 and 1989, his forces carried out brutal campaigns against the Isaac clan, massacres that many regard as genocide. Tens of thousands were killed, entire cities bombed. The Somali National Movement, representing Somaliland's interests, fought back. By January 1991, Barre's regime had collapsed, and while the rest of Somalia plunged into chaos, Somaliland charted a different path, declaring independence and focusing on stability. And they've held on to that stability ever since. Under leaders like Muhammad Igal, Somaliland built institutions from scratch, moving from clan-based power sharing to multi-party democracy. In 2001, voters approved a new constitution. Since 2003, the territory has held several competitive were in opposition to power without violence, a rare feat in the Horn of Africa. Contrast that to Somalia, which freedom now rates as not free with a score of 8 out of 100. Somaliland scored 43, placing it firmly in partly free territory, but still far ahead of its neighbor. But democracy alone hasn't brought economic prosperity. With a GDP of about $7 billion in 2022, much of it from diaspora remittances, Somaliland is locked out of World Bank and IMF funding because it isn't recognized as a state. Youth unemployment is high, brain drain is real, and infrastructure development is slow. Despite all of that, Hargeisa has secured notable foreign investments. The standout is the 2016 deal with DP World to manage the port of Berbera, a project now partly involving Ethiopia.
Somaliland is not a small country. They have over 4 million people and a lot of businessmen and traders. And we are looking forward for the economic corridor between Ethiopia and, of course, Somaliland. Somaliland is very close to the main distribution area in Ethiopia, which is Dir Dawa, which is a main logistic area. And so the relation between the countries are being very good, and many Somaliland people live in Ethiopia, and Ethiopia looks with positive attitude toward Somaliland. We definitely found an opportunity. We developed the port, immediately cargo started to come. We are able to handle any size of vessels in Berbera. There is another stage of expansion if needed. The government also, His Excellency the President, provided land for industries. We have already factories under construction, and there are more factories coming to that place.
Then there's the controversial 2024 agreement with Ethiopia, offering it a slice of Somaliland's coastline for 50 years in exchange for recognition and airline shares. That deal collapsed after Somalia and Ethiopia patched things up under Turkish mediation, a diplomatic blow that likely reinforced Somaliland's push to court the US. So why is the timing right for this American overture? Because the geopolitical chessboard has shifted. The Horn of Africa is now a playground for great players and great powers. The UAE already operates the port of Berbera and an adjacent airstrip. China has its first overseas military base in Djibouti, just 240 kilometers away, right next to the US base at Camp Lemonnier. Djibouti is crowded, expensive, and strategically awkward for the US. A base in Somaliland would give Washington flexibility and a partner not already in Beijing's orbit. Reports suggest that since March 2025, US and Somaliland officials have been in quiet talks about partial recognition in exchange for base access. It's not a done deal, but it's closer than Somaliland has ever come. And of course, China looms over all this.
My husband, he's 58, he started doing Tai Chi classes, and he looks 20 years.
Beijing's influence in Africa has exploded, from infrastructure loans to mining rights to military outposts. The Chinese base in Djibouti gives them a front row seat at Red Sea traffic and proximity to American forces. For Washington, countering that influence isn't just about rivalry, it's about securing supply chains, ensuring freedom of navigation, and maintaining its own strategic outreach. Somaliland, democratic and eager to align with the West, is positioning itself as that alternative. But the road to recognition isn't exactly clear. The biggest obstacle? The US, like the African Union, officially backs a one Somalia policy. Somalia's government fiercely opposes recognition, warning it would undermine territorial integrity and embolden other separatist movements across Africa. From a counter-terrorism perspective, Washington also doesn't want to weaken Somalia's federal government, which it supports in the fight against Al-Shabaab and other extremist groups. And there's the precedent problem. Since 1963, only Eritrea and South Sudan have been widely recognized as new African states. So where does this leave Somaliland? President Abdullahi has hinted that deals on security and minerals could proceed without formal recognition, suggesting a phased approach. It might start with military cooperation and investment, then move towards some form of de facto recognition, even if de jure recognition takes years. In the context of US-China competition, Somaliland's leverage is real. The question is whether Washington will see it as worth the diplomatic fallout with Mogadishu and the precedent it might set for other separatist territories. For Somaliland, this is a make or break moment. If Washington bites, it could transform the territory's fortunes overnight. If not, the people of Somaliland face more years in diplomatic limbo, stable, democratic, but still unrecognized. One thing is certain, in the shifting sands of the Red Sea, this small, unrecognized state has managed to put itself at the center of a very big conversation. 34 years after declaring independence, Somaliland has learned to survive without recognition. Now, it's betting that in a world defined by great power rivalry, survival isn't enough, and that bold moves can only finally bring it the legitimacy it has long